Now, in the last demo, we finally finished styling this nav. One of the things that you might notice is that it still says page 1, page 2, page 3, and so forth. You really should, at this point, change that to the names that you really are going to make your final thing say, because they might not fit properly and you need to accommodate for that. So let's go ahead and take a peek. Let's jump back into our Komodo, and I'm going to go over here in my HTML, and just so you don't have to watch me type it, I'm just going to update this so that instead of saying where it's white, page 5 through page 1, it will instead say the actual names of the websites that I'm proposing that people would visit, or that I would be reviewing. But notice I am leaving the name of the actual HTML files the same, and that's going to help me just be consistent, and it'll be easier for me to just create the file names and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and we can double check to make sure it still looks okay. And then you see that it doesn't look bad at all. So the other thing too, oops, I grabbed the wrong thing. The other thing too is that if you decided that you wanted this to be a heavier typeface or something, you could also go in and change it to the font weight of 600, sort of like this one is. I'm not going to do that though. I think that it's fine the way it is. Okay, so now one of the things that you're going to notice, and don't worry, is that your links start disappearing. We're going to deal with that later when we start to make responsive menus. But right now, let's deal with styling the content in here, because right now this image is gigantic. It's huge, and it's not doing what we really want it to do. So this is what we really want it to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, and we're going to sort of scroll down to the bottom, and we're going to create a new section in our CSS. I'll make this nice and big so that we've got plenty of room in both HTML and CSS sides. And I'm going to come down to the bottom because I like to keep my CSS so that it is in as linear a fashion as possible. And the section that I'm about to style is literally the thing called section. The header doesn't really need to be styled because the only thing that's in it automatically scales at 100%. And it's already doing what we want. So I'm not going to mess with that. I don't need a header style, at least not for my design. You might need one, I don't know. But I need to create something for section whose ID is content. So we're going to come down here, and I'm going to create a new comment that says section content. That way I'll know. I'll just do this so you can get plenty of space underneath. And then I'm going to create a rule for this item or this element called section whose ID is content. So I'm just going to create it like this: section hash content. Okay. And one of the things that's really important right off the bat that you need to pay attention to is that it's going to have a screenshot on the left, and it's going to have a description on the right. That means that it's going to have two things that are floating. All right, so remember about floats, the parent container of floats always needs to have an overflow hidden, okay, rule. And let's just save that. And right now we're okay. We can just move on, but the next thing that we need to do is we actually need to tell this div that it's going to be float left, and also this article that it's also going to be a float left. So let's go here to div, and we're going to, in our CSS, we're going to make a rule that says div, and then because it's a class, it's not an ID, it's going to get a dot, so div dot screenshot. Okay, and that means that this is, and actually what I need to do is I need to put, so that I know that it's the section div.screenshot. And what I need to do here is tell it that it needs to be a float left. Like that. I'm going to save, and then I'm going to go ahead and make the float also for the article. Let's do section article. And then this article has an ID of site info, like that. So I'm going to tell that also to be a float left. And I don't have to make this float right the way that I did the nav up above, because I don't need this thing to cling to the right side always. It's okay because of the way that we're going to set up the margins and the gutters and stuff between these two. So we could go ahead and save this and just test it out and see what shakes out right now. Let's hit, oh, this is the original one, so let's go up here and do it this way. Okay, so it looks like it didn't do anything. Well, part of that might be also because this picture is gigantic. So we need to fix that. This picture is humongous and it's not scaling. Remember back from a previous exercise that you can scale images as long as the parent container has width set. So we need to set the widths. First of all, let's actually look at this again, but let's look at the original. You can see that I've got it so that in my design, the word everything up here takes up a little bit more space than the word relative. And so I have these sort of aligning with the way that my vector graphic is up here. So I think that I want my left side to take up, I don't know, somewhere around, I don't know, 50 something percent, and then this one take up about 40 something percent, and we'll deal with the gutters. And I happen to already know what those percentages are. You could watch me play around, but I don't think you want to take that time. So I'll just show you exactly what the right widths would be, because I sort of pre-made this. So let's just say that this one's 51%, and that this one, let's just try 37%. And what this does is if you add the math up, that's really about 88%. And so what that leaves us with is space for padding or margins. So 100 minus 88 is going to be 12%. So if you think about how to divvy up that 12%, we have a left side and we have a right side. So that's 6 and 6. But then for each of those sides, we have another left side and a right side. So that would be 3 and 3, and then again 3 and 3. So what we can do is we can make it so that we have a padding on each of these at 3%. And if we just say that it's all the way around, then it's okay. And if it's too much on the height and the bottom and top, then we can change it later. So we'll say padding is 3% again. Let's just test that out and see how we fare. This is our new one. We'll hit refresh. Oh, and again, remember, I told you we didn't ever rescale this image. I kind of got carried away talking about the other stuff. But look what's happening. Now it's actually trying to do the percentages correctly. So it's actually working, but this picture just isn't scaling. That's the next thing we really do need to focus on. So let's jump back here. And it's the picture that's inside of our screenshot. So I'm going to copy this, and we can make a descendant rule. Okay, where we have, if you look inside of it, it looks like the next thing inside of it is an A and then an image. Well, okay, so here's the thing is that with an A image, it's the actual IMG that needs to scale. So what we can do is we can say A IMG like that. And we're going to say width is 100%. So when it's 100%, it's not going to be 100% of the whole screen. It'll be 100% of its parent, which is this, which is 51%. So its parent is the screenshot div, which is 51%. So 100% of 51%, okay, is going to end up being 51% of the screen. So let's save that, and we'll do another quick test. Refresh it. Ah, now it's looking better. Okay, and then, you know, none of this stuff is styled like with our headings and so forth, but at least this is starting to look right, and it looks like it's taking up the right amount of space. Okay, so let's jump back in here. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to make some styles for the stuff that's inside of that article area. And so you don't have to watch me type. These are fairly straightforward things. I just pasted lines 84 through 93 here. So what I have is for that H1, you'll notice here there is right here, there is an article, and then there's a header, and then there's an H1. And actually, if I wanted to be really explicit, I would say header here. So, and also here, to make sure that all the browsers are going to read it properly. So where it says section section pound content, then it would be header, then it would be H1, so that it's any H1 inside of the header that's inside of the content section. And what I did was I gave it a font size of 1.6 so that it's a lot larger than the 1.3 standard size. And I also made the font weight 600 so it's heavier. I didn't make the font weight on the H2 heavier, but I did make it larger. And then for the paragraph, I made sure that the margin was 1em on the top and bottom so that it has a little space around it. Let me save it and I'll show it to you. And you see this is how it gets changed. So here, heavier typeface, larger size. The other subheading, the H2, it has just larger, it's not heavier. And then the paragraph, the margin on the top and the bottom, it visually separates the text, okay? So that's how we can do that. Now, one of the other things that you very likely would want to do is, this looks a little bit bare. What you could do is you could create a caption underneath this picture. To do that in HTML5, let's come to the place where we'd want it. You'd put it in your screenshot area. But to do that in HTML5, what you would need to do is you need to wrap something around this A tag called figure. Okay, so let's do that real quick. Let's say figure. Okay, and see it does end figure for me. I'm going to take this end figure and I'm going to actually cut it and I'm going to move it down here. Okay, and then that A, I'm going to just tab it in so that I can see that it's inside of the figure. And then, so this way somebody knows that this picture that's inside this link would go with the thing that goes beneath the A, which is called fig caption. Okay, and this is HTML5. And so we have something fig caption here. I'm just going to paste this so you don't have to watch me type. And I just wrote landing page of such and such website. Okay, so if I save this now and we come back and do a refresh, you see that we actually have the figure caption showing up underneath. And what's good is that screen readers will understand that this is describing this picture. Now, one of the things though, since we did that, is that it looks really out of alignment compared to this other stuff. It's lining up where the word everything is, and we really want it to line up more with where the picture looks like it is. And so even though technically, if you look at this, we can inspect the element, and you can see that technically it does pretty much line up with that image, but because the image has some white around it with a drop shadow, it looks like it's inset. So visually then we really do need to fix that. So let's go ahead and jump back in here, and I'm going to find the spot where I'm dealing with the image, which is right here on my line 75, and then right beneath that I'm going to go ahead and make some space, and that's where I'm going to add, I'm just going to actually copy this right here, and I'm going to make a new rule that is not for the image, but instead that is for the figure fig caption. And the reason I'm writing it like that is because, remember, the fig caption is inside of the figure. Okay, so that's how the descendant rule goes. And what I want to do is I want to set the margin. And we'll do it so that, let's try top and bottom being 0, and let's say left and right, that's what we care about. We're going to set that at maybe, let's try 5%, so that it pushes the margin in. And let's just go with that, and let's save it. And refresh. That helps a little bit. And I don't like that this is the same scale of text as this, because I want it to be a little bit smaller so that it's really clearly defined that it's not a normal part of the paragraph. So I'm going to also go ahead and tell it to have a smaller font size. Let's see what 0.85em looks like. And we can also tell it to have a different color. Even though I didn't do that in my original, let's do it as 666 and let's test it. It looks a lot better.